he had a lot of one-liners and stuff, and I remember him sitting out on the seawall watching us work at the other restaurant, and you're always wondering what's going on through his mind, and then he would come in and say something profound.
Yeah, he had something I took from him and I use to this day is he had a way of standing back and watching the operation and looking for opportunities in the system and the way we do things or the way it could be done. And I definitely remember that. And to this day, I'll walk into a store and watch how the operation goes. And of course, I've been with the In-N-Out Burger for 34 years, so I'm pretty dialed in on how a store should operate. But to this day, I watch that operation and look for those opportunities when I go to a store today. And I could just be there on my day off, and I'm still looking for that. And another thing, too, is he really instilled the customer service thing. And the first time I ever heard the customer is king was from him, his voice, his words, and that they could have went anywhere, but they're here.
Yeah.
So take care of them. And ironically, when I came to work for In-N-Out, that's all they talked about. And I just love that. It was like, oh man, my grandfather's been teaching, he's been saying that for years to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that part, so it was really cool.
Yeah. He was also pretty tough. I mean, as you mentioned, because he had a very stringent policy on a lot of things. One thing that always stuck in my mind, but I think we could all learn from is as a family, when we went there, we paid for our own food.
Yeah. And we weren't really family when we were working.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, he was an old school guy, and I wasn't calling him grandpa, or back in the day we called him papa.
Yeah.
And that wasn't happening. I mean, it was business, and so he really separated that out, and he treated us and treated me and yourself when you were working there later on, like we were hired people.
Yeah.
And he took good care of his people. He paid them well. And but at the same time, there's no grandpa benefits there.
Yeah, it's funny because I naturally called him Jack a few times already in this interview because that's what he wanted to be called by us when we worked for him.
Exactly.
And it almost seemed like there was a point after dinner that he would go back to being grandpa.
Right.
And we could turn on a TV show or something and not talk about business anymore.
Absolutely.
I think part of the cell job, obviously, Mom and Dad wanted to get you out of their hair for the summer and go spend the time with your grandparents. And the cell job was, hey, you get to go live at the beach, right?
Right.
But the reality is you were working pretty hard. You put a lot of hours in down there.
Yeah, it wasn't all fun. And it was mainly work. And it was no days off, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining. I mean, I loved it. And I was making money for my school year and things like that. So we were down there to work, and work we did. I got in trouble a couple times as I got a little older as a teenager down there. Just staying out a little too late maybe, and you know how the summertime festivities are on the boardwalk.
Yep.
Newport during the summertime. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole nother show.
Yeah.
We'll have you back for that one.
Yeah, that would be a good show.
So what's interesting to me is that it really was a great lifestyle. I agree with you. We worked hard, but it was very enjoyable. No regrets. At what point did you decide, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore? Because I know the opportunity was there for any of us to be there for a long time if that's what we wanted. But when did you decide, I need to leave this job and go get a real job or whatever you wanted to call it at the time?
Well, it was a couple things that were happening at the same time. So the summertime, well, the truth is I've been working my whole life, and I've never stopped. Even on my days off these days, I've got stuff going on that I'm doing. So.
Yeah.
I got a job at Griswolds, and they were quite impressed. And Griswolds was a smorgasbord in Claremont, California. And they liked me. They liked the work ethic. And so there was opportunities being presented. They wanted me to go into management. I was a busboy there. Then I was a head busboy. I was a waiter. Then I was a head waiter. And the next thing was they wanted me to go into management.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I'm just getting, just getting ready to come out of school, and all that good stuff. It's kind of on my mind. I like Griswolds.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah,
I don't love it, but I like it. I'm having a good time working there. But at the same time, our grandfather Grandpa Jack, he kind of set out an expectation that he wanted me to go to college because he wanted to open some more restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And not being the student most people are.
Yeah.
Because I was a poor student. I went to school mainly to meet people and play sports. I was not excited about going to college whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he made it clear that that was part of the deal. It was going to be a great thing. We're going to open some more quickie burgers and all that kind of stuff. And I just cringed at the idea of going to college, not doing so well in school or not putting the effort in that maybe I should have in school. It just seemed like I was so glad to be, out of school.
Yeah.
The idea of going to college just did not sound good to me at all. And at that point in time, I started entertaining the idea that maybe I'll just, I'll do the Griswolds things. Well, then they told me, we want you to go to school. And I'm like,
wow.
Oh, no, here we go again. And I said, well, I don't really want to go to school. No, we just want you to take a couple classes. Oh, okay, I can do that.
That sounds good. Sports?
Yeah, I can do that, So Mount SAC, I enrolled myself into Mount SAC. And at the same time, I was dating a wonderful lady that I married. Her name was Tracy. And her dad, at the time, unknowns to me, had a big job at In-N-Out Burger. And he actually offered me, knowing how much I was working and what I was doing and that they were interested in me for management, he basically said, hey, if you're going to be in the restaurant business, you ought to, work for a company that cares about their people.
Yeah.
And, it's like, that was neat to say and everything, but, what do you mean? And he says, well, you should just look into In-N-Out Burger. And I said, well, what you don't know is I've been doing burgers since I was like 12. And I totally get it. And I love that stuff. It's some of the best times I've ever had. And, so I started looking into it and everything. And so I actually go to work for In-N-Out Burger, mainly because I don't want to go to school.
Yeah, college.
Yes.
So you graduated high school. And I know you were an incredible athlete and very popular in school, but scholastically, it just wasn't your thing, right?
No, it wasn't. And you know what, Jim? We had a tough life in the beginning, and it's our mom, who's amazing. Your stepmom, my mom, she had me when she was 15 years old, and we bounced around a little bit. And I don't think I ever got that real good foundation in because I was in between schools all the time and always a new kid. And I think it really got me off to a bad start with school and learning. And I just never really grasped some of the stuff that I kind of know today.
Yeah.
But back then as a young person. So it's tough, but it all worked out well. I was, when I was young, I was a little bit, self-conscious about those things. But as time goes on, you get confident in what you do and what you're about. And those things, although they sometimes look really good on a resume, it's not, in my scope, my job, the things I've done today, I've worked with some people with some really serious education. And sometimes I'm surprised at their lack of effort.
Yeah.
And kind of, just don't have the work ethic or the common sense in some cases. So I think I'm a pretty street smart person and hardworking, and I think you can go far with just those things.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, just because the premise of the show is really about making decisions at points in your life where you might be more geared to exactly what you've done, is that was a decision to not go to college and go down this career at In-N-Out where they didn't ask you to go to college, right. Or just the opposite where somebody thinks that they're in the right career, but it'd be better for them to go to college because scholastically they might excel there. So I think it's a really good point that you make in terms of your decision process and why. It's almost like you scientifically weighed out your best options and knew what you wanted maybe without knowing what you want. Right. The biggest thing was you knew you didn't want to go to school.
I knew I didn't want to go to school. I knew what was being offered was something that I was good at and liked. And so I said, heck yes, I'm going to do that. And I went in with everything I had and gave it my full attention. And that's kind of who I am. I go in all the way. It doesn't matter what we're doing. I always put forth my best effort. And I did that, and it seemed to work out really well. And I had a lot of success. I came up the ranks relatively fast because I knew what they were trying to do at In-N-Out. And I knew that because of what my grandfather was trying to do. And so a lot of it came very natural to me. It was, back in the day at an In-N-Out Burger, the manager was also the cook. And I did have a little bit of a hard time cooking, getting it down.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come as easy there because they were just so busy.
Yeah.
But I think within a year I was cooking pretty good. And, 1 year you think you're good, the next year you're even better, and you just, a handful of years later, you're actually a pretty darn good cook.
I think it's an important time to talk about just going into the management program at In-N-Out. I mean, it's people are aware of it, right?
Yes.
They understand the magnitude. I had Ryan Carson on the show a couple weeks ago, and he founded a company called Treehouse, and his position is trade school, not college, where really he's looking at debt consolidation and creating debt from going to college and what position that puts you in life. And so through his company, you can get an education there and learn how to program computers for literally pennies on the dollar. I mean, and walk out without having all the college debt and get a $50,000 to $70,000 a year job. And I just love that story, and I always think back about what In-N-Out offers because that's been my background. Can you tell us a little bit about what was offered to you at the time? You mentioned you were requested to go into the management program. What was that all about, and what did that look like for you individually?
Well, back in the day, they actually offered to put me in a management program.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was going to be going into management for Griswolds, it was like, hey, why don't you go into management for us? Check it out. So immediately after working there, I loved it, and it was just right up my alley. And I took to things really fast. So I was in the management program for them, and it was amazing. It was learning about your attitude and leadership and all kinds of good stuff. And I just think that, it was just a blessing that I made that decision because I was at home and I knew where I was going. I knew how to do it, and I knew how to be successful. And as I moved up to the company, and became a store manager, I did some really special things. And the way In-N-Out, measures things, it's pretty competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself being quite successful as a store manager. And I'll tell you that, the store manager position, in my opinion, was probably the best job I ever had. And, I've had fancier jobs and jobs that make, of course, a lot more money than that as a COO for the company. But I will tell you that, when you get to create your environment, you get to pick the people that are going to be around you every day, and you're going to spend more of your waking hours with the people you work with, and you get to choose who those people are, you can create a pretty special environment.
Yeah.
And if you're good at selecting and interviewing and getting the right people around you, you can actually create a pretty awesome team that's a lot of fun. And that's exactly what I did. And I trained them up, and we did good things, and I loved to go to work because my friends were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't the kind of guy that was a friendly manager kind of buddy thing. I was a disciplinarian and everything, but I just really enjoyed the company of the people that I worked with, and I was really vested in who they were as people and tried to mentor people the best I could. At roughly probably about 24 years old.
It's interesting. You said that was the best job you've had in your life or in your career, and I've known you my whole life. I've never heard you say that.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at it from the perspective that you just gave us as far as creating your own environment. And I would suppose that applies really to any company or business that you're a manager and you have the ability to hire people and create your own environment.
Absolutely, Jim. If you're, let's say, we're using the restaurants, right now because that's what I do. But if your store isn't very friendly, why don't you hire some friendly people that smile? It's almost that simple.
Yeah.
And the challenge with a place like In-N-Out is that we do hire a lot of young people, and in the beginning, their first interest is to maybe have enough money to go on a date or put some money in a gas tank, or some gas and go, and drive. But as they come into work for us or me,